Hello. Look at all of you beautiful people. So, good morning. I'm really happy to be here. I am fat. The F word, right? I happen to use this word as a self-descriptor, and I don't say it to put myself down, and I certainly don't say it in hopes that someone will say, "Oh no, you're not fat," because that's the thing. Nobody says to a tall person, "Oh, you're not tall," and nobody says that because tall is not a dirty word. We as women are programmed to tell each other that we're not fat because to many people, both men and women, fat is the worst thing that you can be. Society has turned the word fat into a synonym for ugly. But that's not what fat means. Fat just means fat. I'm 5'3", so I call myself short. I'm married, so I call myself a wife. I weigh 240 pounds, so I call myself fat. And I am beautiful, so I call myself beautiful. And I am all of those things at once. Now, in addition to all of those things, I am also a burlesque performer. My name is Lillian Bustle, and I take off my clothes artistically on stages in front of crowds, and this has taught me to love my body in ways that I never knew was possible. Now, I did not always feel this way. Today, I'm here to talk about body image issues in women, my own personal journey, my paradigm shift from when I started performing burlesque, and the ways that burlesque can help us all feel better about ourselves. So I spent most of my life being ashamed of my body. Even when I was very little, I was fat and I was really insecure. And I got very good at hiding it, but it was always there, lurking in the background. Now, when I started going to burlesque performances a few years ago, what I saw on those stages were these daring, creative, funny women of all shapes and sizes. And they looked to me like they could walk through fire. And I thought, you know what? I have to have that. And for the first time in my life, I really felt like I could have that. So what is burlesque? When you hear the word burlesque, you might think of that Christina Aguilera movie, and it's not your fault. But let's see what Merriam-Webster says. Now, in addition to other definitions like mockery by caricature or literary exaggeration, burlesque is a theatrical entertainment of a broadly humorous, often earthy character, consisting of short turns, comic skits, and sometimes striptease acts. Now, burlesque was documented in New York City going back to 1868 when a troupe from London came over, Lydia Thompson and the British Blondes, and they brought Victorian burlesque to the States. And burlesque grew and it changed, and it grew to a boom in America in the 30s. But New York burlesque screeched to a halt in 1937 when Fiorello LaGuardia essentially shut down burlesque houses in New York, saying that they were corrupting the morals of the city. He also got rid of pinball machines at the same time. Now, it still existed elsewhere in the States, but burlesque had started to peter out by the mid-70s. Burlesque experienced a resurgence in the States in the 90s, and it's still gaining momentum, and now it's gaining momentum all over the world. But if you go to a show tomorrow, you'll see that there's as many different kinds of performances as there are performers. So it's hard to nail down exactly what burlesque is today. So there's humor, there's political parody, there's social commentary. You see acts that'll make you cry, acts that will make you laugh. There's a lot of glitter. There's a lot of glamour, and yes, there's stripping.
So burlesque, beyond the kind of burlesque that most folks think of, you'll also see nerdlesque, that is a Cthulhu costume right there, boylesque, which is what the gentlemen on the scene call themselves, and you'll see circus acts. You'll also see performance art burlesque, which is sort of everything else that you could ever think of, and a few things that you would never think of. You're also likely to see a great deal of body diversity. Of course, there are still traditional showgirl bodies on the stage, but that's just the thing. There are all kinds of bodies on these stages. There's all sizes, there's all colors, all ages, masculine bodies, feminine bodies, trans bodies. Women still perform while they're pregnant. And yeah, there's powder and glitter and wigs on top of those bodies. And yes, some producers seem to show a little bit of bias towards the traditional showgirl aesthetic. I'm not saying it's utopia, but I am saying that it's kind of your best chance to see a band of wonderfully diverse people gleefully celebrating their bodies on stage. So now that we know what burlesque is, what is body image? Well, it's how we see ourselves, right? Well, it turns out it's a little bit more than that. The National Association for Eating Disorders says that body image is how you see yourself when you look in the mirror or when you picture yourself in your mind. It encompasses what you believe about your own appearance, including your memories. That really hit me. Your assumptions and your generalizations. It's how you feel about your body, including your height, your shape, and your weight. And it's how you sense and control your body as you move. It's how you feel in your body, not just how you feel about your body. Now, I don't want to dump a ton of statistics on you. We're all pretty aware that many studies have been done showing that the overly sexualized, photoshopped, unrealistic images of women in the media has a pretty severely terrible impact on women's self-image. But I do want to highlight a couple of things. The #1 magic wish for girls ages 11 through 17 is to be thinner. I know that wish. I made that wish. What a waste of a wish. So, studies are growing, and we do know that eating disorders are on the rise among the trans community, elderly, and women of color, but we don't have a lot of hard and fast numbers because the studies just aren't being done. They're out there, but it's not enough to really nail down exactly what's happening in those groups. So, additionally, we know that size discrimination in the workplace has increased by 66% over the past 3 decades. That's a lot. And this impacts women far more severely than it does men. A recent study showed that fatter women make up to 6.2% less than their thin counterparts in the same job. So are you ready for some good news? Yay, good news. Well, it turns out that we are on the edge of a brave new world of body love and acceptance. A recent study shows that the more we're exposed to body diversity, the more we tolerate, accept, and yes, even prefer different body types. So hooray for science. This study is called, this is a mouthful, Visual Diet versus Associative Learning as Mechanisms of Change in Body Size Preferences. This was published in the peer-reviewed Journal of the Public Library of Science, PLOS 1. So let's break this down. Visual diet. What we eat with our eyes. These are the images that we take in all day, every day. The pictures that we consume, what we feed our consciousness. The study hypothesized that due to cognitive adaptation effects, that our preferences change depending on our exposure to images. So this study was weighing visual diet against associative learning. The idea that we make decisions about how appearance is related to success based on how we see people represented in society. So the photos that they used, one set of photos featured women in gray leotards with their faces blurred out. And this was done so that subjects could view just the bodies without linking the bodies to any visual cues of success. Some of the gray leotard photos featured thin bodies and some featured fat bodies. Now the other set of images were of women in very glamorous outfits. There were beauty queens, there were women in high fashion, and some of those photos, the women were fat and some were thin. Now I do not have a photo of me headless in a gray leotard, but that's me being glamorous. So before, during, and after the photos, the subjects were quizzed on their preferences for body type, and here's what they found. In the case of the headless gray leotard photos, the more people saw the images of larger women, the more the women reported preferring those larger bodies. And the more they viewed very underweight bodies, the more they reported preferring thinner bodies. So basically, the more we see one kind of body, the more we like that kind of body. They also found that in the groups who were shown glamorous images to compare to the gray headless images, the participants preferred the bodies who were in the glamorous photos, regardless of the body type. So hooray for glamour too. So this really is tremendous news. Seeing art that features and celebrates so many different kinds of bodies in glamorous get-ups will make us more accepting of diversity, and we can control our visual diet. You want to get all your visual food groups in? Burlesque is a pretty great way to do that. The more that body diversity is normalized in our minds, the kinder we can be to ourselves and to our bodies. So how does performing burlesque fit in with our theme of Brave New World? Well, scary. It's a little scary. New things are scary. Delving into yourself in search of healing is very scary. Going against societal norms, scary. Being vulnerable is scary, and I'm sure I don't have to tell you that taking your clothes off in front of a room full of people, very scary.
Now, the first time I performed, I almost threw up. And it was because I was terrified not of people seeing this or this. I was worried about people seeing my underarms, my upper arms. That's what I was afraid of. And I'm not afraid of my arms anymore. Now, that performance was about 3 minutes long, and it left me feeling like I could do anything. I felt like I could walk through that fire. My friend and mentor, ultimate confidence leader and burlesque star, world-famous Bob, that's her full title, she calls that kind of experience a courage reference. Doing something brave and keeping that feeling in your pocket for times when you're not feeling so brave anymore. For me, burlesque became the ultimate courage reference. And now anytime I'm nervous about anything, like being up here today, I can reference that bravery and I can remind myself that I'm strong and courageous and that I do great things, and we can all have that. Now, as it happens, taking your clothes off in front of people will teach you a lot about yourself. So here are some other lessons that I've learned from performing in burlesque shows that have had an impact on my self-esteem as well as how I think of other people. Loving the audience. That's me loving the audience. I found that if I'm focusing on you fine people when I'm on stage, that I don't have time to worry about if I look okay or if something's gonna go wrong. And I find this to be true off stage too. If I'm nervous in a situation and I just focus on you folks, then I can take the focus off of me and just relax. So also, backstage to center stage. Watching other performers completely transform, to come into the dressing room in sweats and a dirty ponytail, and then turn into these amazing stage queens, it gives the girls some pretty amazing perspective. Life is a balance between accepting who you are au naturel and learning who you can seem to be with some paint and some wigs, and they're both so, so beautiful. My next lesson was shared with me by New York performer Fancy Feast. Fancy Feast said to me when we were discussing this whole topic, being beautiful is a decision that you make. Can you imagine if someone had told you that when you were 10? Most of us sit around waiting for permission, for affirmation, for some other to swoop in and tell us that we're worthy, that we're beautiful. It doesn't have to be like that. Burlesque, and as I've found in life, you get to do it. You get to just wake up one day and decide that you're beautiful. It's true. And you can use the stage in burlesque as practice to reinvent yourself, but you can do it in daily life. Burlesque just lets you get a lot of practice in. So this concept came up again and again when I was discussing body image with performers. You get to decide that you're gorgeous. You get to decide that you're powerful. You get to decide that you're amazing. And you get to decide that you're worth looking at. Whether or not you know it, this is true in regular life as well. So I have a couple of other quotes from my interviews with other performers. This is a performer whose name is Fruit on the Bottom. If I could say my biggest takeaway from being a fat stripper, it's that sometimes I realize I might be the only fat naked girl these people have ever seen. It makes me feel very powerful to show a new body to people and make it obvious that I love it. So the next quote is from a performer named Legs Malone. She also teaches a class called Healing Your Relationship with Your Body. And Legs says, burlesque is a uniquely healing art form that celebrates the body. When the artist can get out of their own way, you see the body fall away and you're left seeing the spirit. And the last quote I have is from a performer named Beelzebub. To see a woman in a variety of shapes, ages, and sizes who are not airbrushed or photoshopped is amazing. It expands our appreciation of beauty. It opens us up to possibilities, and it challenges us to rethink the narrow confines that society has given us for what's desirable. Maybe it's even revolutionary. Now, there's one more thing that came up over and over when I was talking to performers with non-traditional bodies about this talk. Sometimes after a show, someone will come up to us and they'll say, "Oh, you are so brave." And a lot of performers hate that. They hate it. And I totally understand. I get it, because that can sound a little condescending, right? Like, oh, somebody patting your head and being like, "Good job, honey. Oh, you did it anyway." But here's the thing. I don't care what spirit that's meant in. What I'm doing is brave. I'm standing on a stage and saying, I'm fat and I'm beautiful, And not only am I not afraid to be seen, I'm worth looking at. What I'm doing is brave. What I'm doing is important. What I'm doing is socially significant. And if seeing my body on a stage struck you so hard you had to come up and talk to me about it, then I will take it. Mission freaking accomplished. If after all this time you're still thinking, Lillian, burlesque, it's really not my thing, that's okay. Look around. You owe it to yourself to find some kind of art out there that inspires you and reveals different kinds of bodies. At the very least, try to be mindful of the images that you consume. Maybe give up a couple tabloids. Maybe stop watching TMZ. But whatever you do, I hope that you find some courage references like I mentioned. I do hope that you get out and see some burlesque and maybe even take some classes. But mostly I hope that you fill up your pockets with courage references and then go find some fire to walk through. Thank you.